I paid Spotify $100 to promote my latest album, and in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the results. That's right, Spotify campaigns. What are they? How do you do one? And most importantly, is it worth it? I'm your host with the most, your nutritional yeast with the least, DG the artist. Let's get into it. First things first, if you just care about the numbers and you don't care about what a Spotify campaign is or how to set one up, you can go to this timestamp right now and skip to just the data. If you're still here, what is a Spotify campaign? So if you have 1,000 streams in 28 days in a certain country, you can pay Spotify $100 and they'll try to get your release out to more people. Ideally, you get some Spotify streams and you're doing this in a completely legal and supported by Spotify way instead of doing some shady playlist stuff. It's important to point out the difference between showcases and marquees. These are two different types of Spotify campaigns. Showcases are not super exclusive. You need the 1,000 streams in 28 days in a certain country to do them, but I'm pretty sure I've been able to do showcases when I haven't met that criteria, so mileage may vary. A marquee, on the other hand, is a super exclusive club. You get some really special advertising power or whatever. I don't really know how a marquee works. I'm not big enough to qualify. Hey, drop a like, subscribe, check me out on Spotify so I can reach the marquee threshold, and I'll make another video like this in the future. Anyway, how do you do a Spotify campaign? So first off, you're gonna need a Spotify for Artists account. If you're watching this video and you don't have one, that's kind of weird. Like, I don't know why you're watching this video, but stay. I'm happy to have you. Make a Spotify for Artists account, log in, and on the side, you'll see a thing that says campaigns. From there, you can choose any of your releases that you've released so far. I'm gonna choose my album, You Deserve the World, which, by the way, might be album of the year. I'm not gonna lie. Then they ask where you want your campaign to run. I chose the United States because that's where I'm from. That's where I'm doing shows. That's where I want to have an audience. You can only choose one country per campaign, so I recommend choosing a place either where you live and you are already starting to gain a following or where you really want to expand to. And next, they give you a bunch of options. So you can customize the audience that they will show your campaign to. And I took advantage of this. I chose basically everything except for programmed audience. So I chose my entire active audience. That's anybody who is already listening to my music, because I definitely want them to know about my new album. I also selected my previously active audience. These are people who at some point in time were fans of my music. They were listening to it, but they dropped off for whatever reason. I promise it wasn't me. I didn't fall off. I will never fall off. I really wanted to target these people because they know who I am, and if they see, a little advertisement that says listen to DG the artist, they're going to be like, oh, I remember that guy. I haven't listened in a while. Let's see what his new thing's about. So I think that's a great audience to target. I skipped programmed audience. These are people who have found my songs through playlists and things like that. In my opinion, I don't know if this is grounded by data, but I feel like those sorts of people are people who are very passive music listeners if they only heard me on a playlist. I don't know if those people are really the best to convert into real fans who are going to check out my YouTube, my Instagram, check out other songs of mine, come to concerts, things like that. So I decided to let them be. And finally, potential audience is everybody else, everybody who's never listened to my music before. Always happy to have new people on board, so I added them in too. For these options, it said that my cost per click was going to be 34 cents. So that means everybody who clicks on the campaign, I'm probably paying 34 cents for them to do so. Next, you choose your budget, and they're going to put a big number here. Don't let them convince you. Do what you're comfortable spending. The lowest you can choose is $100. So if you don't have that bankroll, come back later. I just wanted to try it out, so I went with the lowest of 100, and then if I love it, maybe I'll come back for more. And then it tells me my expected reach. So they have a very wide range. 2.9 thousand to 8.6 thousand people will see the campaign. That means it'll show up somewhere in their feeds at some point, and they expect that will convert to 150 to 440 clicks. Next, you get a nice little customization option. You might like releasing music soon, on tour, new music, all these options. I went with you might like because I think that sort of triggers something in your head where you're like, oh, this is an algorithm at work. Like if you see you might like this music on the Spotify app, I think you're probably not thinking to yourself that somebody paid for that. You're probably thinking the algorithm thinks based on your tastes that you'll enjoy it, which people would probably click on. I wasn't a marketing major. I don't know, but it seemed right to me, so I went with it. All right, let's get into the results. This Spotify campaign for my album, You Deserve the World, had an outreach of 11,474 real humans. Maybe some of them are bots, I don't know. And of those 11,000 people who saw the campaign, 297 of them clicked on it. Of the 297 who clicked on it, 103 of them listened to at least one song. So you really get like a wide funnel here. You know, it shows it to many, many people. A few people click on it, and of those, about a third even listen to a song. So, you know, if you're paying 34 cents for a click and only a third of those clicks translate to actual listens, you're paying like $1 per listener. I imagine mileage varies on this. Maybe there's a way to optimize that and get more people who click on it to actually listen, but like there's no real difference between clicking on the campaign that shows the release and then clicking on the first song. So I don't know why there's such a big drop off there. Hey, I realized while editing this that it could also be because it's an album and not a single. Like maybe people clicked on it expecting to just listen to one song and then they got intimidated when they saw a whole album. I don't know, but let me know if you want me to try this again with a single in the future. Now you can see of these 103 listeners, 99 of them were people who have never listened to my music before. Of those 99, we got 66, so 2/3 of them who were light listeners. That probably means they listened to 1 or 2 songs and never came back. The other third is split mostly into moderate listeners, 29 of them, and then 4 super listeners. So these are people who are ideally going to become real big fans because they're listening a lot. We also had 1 reactivated listener. So these are people who have listened to me in the past and are back again. That one person converted to a moderate listener. We'll take it. And finally, we had 3 amplified listeners. We had 2 people who were already listeners of my music. They were moderate listeners, and after seeing this campaign, they became moderate listeners. Thanks, Spotify. There was also 1 super listener who remained a super listener after seeing the campaign. So for my experience personally, the vast majority of people successfully targeted by this campaign were people who had never heard my music before. To be fair, I'm a small artist. If you already have tens of thousands of monthly listeners or something, you might get more people in your previously active or currently active audience. For me, I started this campaign about a week after dropping my album, and if I remember correctly, I was around like 300 or 400 monthly listeners at that point. So there weren't that many people in my active audience who could really be fed the campaign. Still, 3 of them saw it and clicked through, so we'll take it. I got more data for you. So you can see of the people who clicked on this campaign and listened to at least 1 song, on average, they gave me 4.2 streams, which is pretty good. It's a 10-song album. That means either they listened to 1 song a bunch of times or they listened to almost half the album. Pretty good for an average. I'm not gonna lie, the intent rate, playlist ad rate, save rate, all those numbers kind of confuse me. I've tried looking at them a bunch and I don't really know what it's trying to tell me. But you can see that there are 12 playlist ads and 122 saves, which is more than 1 save per new listener on average. Here's a track breakdown. I'm just gonna put this on screen for you so you can analyze it. Here's the track list of the album, and you can see that as you go down the track list, you tend to get more active streams per listener. So the first song, Feeling, has 1.4 active streams per listener, and the last song, You Deserve the World, is up to 2.2. I thought this was weird at first until I realized the reason for it. Most people click on this ad and they listen to the first song and they're not feeling it and they leave. If you make it through the trials and tribulations of listening to 10 DG the Artist songs, you probably like DG the Artist, so you're gonna actively stream the songs more often. I'm not gonna lie, I think they messed up with the playlist ad rate here, because I see, you know, some that show no percent, but there's still 1 playlist ad, so I don't know what the deal with that is. Same thing for the save rate and the number of saves, because that number of saves does not add up to 122, so I don't know what's up, but if you do, let me know in the comments, and you can also just take a look at this data for yourself and interpret it how you want. Now, the last data I have directly from the campaign is how converted listeners engaged with my other tracks, and it's not that much. I had 3 people check out my catalog and listen to something else, but 2 of those people were already listeners of mine, so by definition, they had checked out something else already. So I had 1 person from my potential audience check out my other songs, and they gave them 1 stream. Now, one thing I was really worried about before I started this Spotify campaign was that if I did this Spotify campaign, it was gonna screw up my Spotify algorithm placements forever. If Spotify knows I'm willing to pay them, why would they help out my songs for free? So here's the before and after. This shows my daily listener breakdown from the beginning of May to like middle of June. I released the first single for the album on May 2nd, so there's a little bump there. And then I released the album on May 9th, another little bump. And then the campaign hit on May 17th. And you can see the active listeners shoot way up. That's those 100 or so new people who were checking out my music. And I was worried that one of these curves would just go way down to 0 after the campaign ended because Spotify knows that I'm willing to give them money. And it didn't. After the campaign ended, I still had a pretty consistent set of active listeners and program listeners. There's a little bit of decay going on, but that's kind of just what happens after you release an album and you're not pushing it as hard. And ever since then, my numbers have been pretty much as expected, so I don't think that's really a serious concern. Here's what my daily streams look like. You can see the day I dropped the album, big jump in streams, super proud of that. And then the day the campaign hit, another pretty decent bump. This is interesting to me because the people who were there on day 1, you know, the day 1 homies, day 1 fans of DG the Artist, they were really streaming that up. And even though though there were more people hit by the campaign and listening to it, according to the numbers, the number of streams that converted to isn't actually as much as the true fans were giving me on day one. So that's kind of cool. Shout out to you. And here's the real proof of that: daily streams per listener. You can see when I dropped the album that went way up, but I can't even really tell where the campaign happened on this graph. It was here. And here's the number of daily followers too. There's a little increase from the campaign, nothing too crazy though. And that's something that I really want to hit home about all of this, which is if you're trying to promote your music, it's really easy to get caught up in just like, how many streams am I getting? But most of the time for starving artists, streams don't pay the bills. You gotta get fans, you know, people who will buy your merch, come to your shows, follow you on Instagram, and like check for when you're gonna drop again. And I can't lie, like, you know, even though 100 new people listened to this album because of the campaign, where are they now? Perfect segue into the final question I want to answer in this video. Was it worth it? I'll break it down into the pros and cons. First pro, I did get more listeners in the US and more streams in the US, as promised. Apparently some of those people became moderate and super listeners and didn't just like listen to one song and dip. That's pretty cool. And I did put here that the post-campaign algorithm seems better. I'm not sure if it's better than it would have been if I hadn't done the campaign, but I did notice that after doing the campaign, I was seeing more Spotify radio plays coming in for some of the songs on my album. I think that's when people listen to a song enough that Spotify just sort of puts it in their rotation automatically. That could have just happened because I just dropped a new album and some people were excited about that. But at the very least, the Spotify campaign did not kill that momentum. So we'll take it. Now the cons. It either didn't target that many previously active listeners, or the previously active listeners it did target just really hate my music and didn't want to click through. I didn't see any real crossover to other platforms, like my Instagram and YouTube didn't really seem to be impacted by this campaign either way. I don't think I'm gonna get people pulling up at live shows saying, oh yeah, I found you on Spotify. I just don't think that's how it's gonna happen. And con number 3, possibly the worst of them all, I now have 100 fewer dollars. So make sure to join the channel for access to exclusive DG the Artist perks and check out my merch at shop.dgtheartist.com. All in all, a Spotify campaign is not gonna save your music career, but it's also not gonna ruin anything. You pretty much get what you pay for, which is some extra exposure and more streams on Spotify. So if that's what you're looking for, that's what you'll get. Overall, I think a Spotify campaign can be helpful as part of your advertising process, but if you expect this to be the thing that makes you blow up, it's just not gonna do that. That's about all I got for this video. Let me know in the comments your experiences with Spotify campaigns, whether you intend to do one after watching this video or this video turned you away from one. Either way, I'm interested. If this video was helpful for you, the best thing you can do for me is go stream my album, You Deserve the World. It's my proudest work so far, and I would love to have you listen to it and let me know what you think. And if enough people see this video and stream my music to help me hit that marquee threshold, I will make another video where I pay for a Spotify marquee and analyze the results. That's it for this one. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.